So moving to Norwegian Rosemaling. So the idea of doing native arts basically comes from the thought that we often see a finished or end result of a cultural icon, like whatever native arts that we follow. But there's always some kind of story behind it, some kind of history, some almost like a cultural artifact that's embedded sometimes in the colors and the motifs. And the moment you start illustrating it, you start putting together a lot of these questions, and a much richer picture of that culture emerges. So you become familiar with that. Literally, so it's the difference between being a tourist and going and living there with a local family. So today's topic is this Norwegian Rosemaling, which is not a very popular art form. That's why it's pretty obscure and it's very regional, but it has a certain cult following because of its history. So Norwegian Rosemaling are these. I'll share pictures. I've already shared pictures on the group, so I can elaborate on the designs, and I can speak while you see the designs. So this is a Rosemaling, and it actually just translates to rose painting. And I suspect that the word rose is a generic word for a number of flowers in general. So this kind of brushwork to create multicolored flowers and then with fine line creating some detailing, this is Rosemaling. But there's a difference in the expression of Rosemaling across the whole region of Norway that it comes from. From valley to valley, there are different motives and different rules with which these are made. So this is one. I'll elaborate on that a little further also. This is another one. So what you see is prominently a C shape like that. And in some cases now you will also see like this is almost an oval shape, and then you have an S shape. Literally, these are the only two things that the whole design is built from. The simplicity of it is marvelous. Even the flowers are made using just a C-shaped stroke or an S-shaped stroke to break the monotony. The colors that are used are often earth colors, so that's not very surprising. But often there's also background color that distinguishes a region. So for a lay person, all of it looks pretty much the same. Between the first one that I showed you and this one that I'm showing you, we see the same shapes and the same strokes. But there are some differences. Now here, markedly, there is a difference in the background. The design is in monotone. But apart from that, there are very few differences. So the use of Rosemaling was often in furniture or interiors of buildings. So this was probably a wooden panel in some cupboard or maybe on bed, on the headboard of beds. This is a design from a church that was originally built in the 12th century. Of course, the Rosemaling design is not from the 12th century. It's dated to somewhere in the 18th or 19th century. This is another beautiful panel design. Here's a very unusual look at Rosemaling. These are not traditional patterns, but this has been designed like or illustrated like a continuous Rosemaling design. And what makes it Rosemaling is the C shape and the S shape leaves.
So pretty.
I know. And this is the one instructional that I found, and I'll explain how this works as well. So I'm going to show you a few things, and of course later on I'm also going to share a couple of videos with you which show the different types of Rosemaling, and also how to create these. Nowadays, the Rosemaling is made in acrylic paint mostly, or oil paint, because you need something really thick to make those strokes. So the story of the Rosemaling is also very interesting, that in the late 1800s, or in the early 1800s, in fact, there was a huge migration of Norwegians to the US. And they carried all their stuff in all these trunks, which were decorated with Rosemaling. So that's quite a collector's item now, these trunks from olden times. And there's a big community of Norwegian descendants in the northern states, and they have revived. So even there's an artist in Alaska, there's someone in I think Minnesota, who are reviving some of these Rosemaling and following the traditions that they remember from their grandparents who used to do the same thing. This artwork is extremely informal, and it used to be practiced mostly by fisher folk who, in the time that they could not fish, used to do house painting and would decorate with these shapes. And that's why the designs are not extremely sophisticated. They're almost equal to the kind of designs we see on trucks, on the Indian trucks. They're a quick stroke here or there and create a beautiful motif. And I've often found those truck designs terrible because there was no thought given. I used to just feel that why don't they do a dhanga design? Why are they just using whatever colors they have? They go to some hardware shop and get 6 colors, and the whole thing is done with 6 colors. Until a time when I must admit, I came across a book that was a collection of photographs of trucks from India and Pakistan. And the person, I think he did a wonderful job in documenting and celebrating the madness that is of Indian trucks. And there's also so much emotion involved. There's always some lady in the back who's waiting for her PR to come home. And then you can imagine the life of a trucker who's on the road and he's missing his home and family. And the truck is the only connection that he probably has between his home and his life. So eventually then I started seeing these trucks differently. And yes, taking 6 colors and painting a whole truck and making it look beautiful is not an easy task. And they don't have the time, they don't have the resources or the training or an aesthetic education to figure out what they should do. So I was being extremely pompous when I said I don't like they were tacky. I've learned to appreciate it very differently now. So the Rosemaling also, you will notice, is a very humble design. It does not try to be like we are the cat's whiskers and you have to be very strict about certain things. In several videos that I saw, they were, most of the artists were very open about experimenting. And they said, okay, these are how we have practiced the Rosemaling in the past. But don't stop yourself, use it, change the colors, do your own thing, try to be as creative as you can. So that was very interesting. So I'm going to show you some examples of Rosemaling that I've studied and I have deconstructed. So you get an idea of how to look for differences in these Rosemaling.
How do you spell the Rosemaling? M-A-L.
M-A-L-I-N-G. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. So between Norway and Denmark also, they have the culture of Rosemaling. And the Danish Rosemaling looks slightly different and it's called something else also. I'll just look for that and I'll explain that as well. Okay, so this is my sample. So from region to region, they have a different style of Rosemaling. Now, the 4 that I have studied are Gudbrandsdal, Telemark, which is the most prolific. You can see it almost everywhere. Hallingdal and Rogaland. I'm going to share these pictures with you so you can see them in detail and study them. So each of them has a different kind of characteristic, and I'll point out a few things that are obvious, but you can often use your own observation to see other points that you might feel distinct of these styles. Now, the Gudbrandsdal Rosemaling is usually made with the acanthus leaf as a primary motif. Now, acanthus is like a weed that grows all over Europe, and it's got very distinct large leaves with a lot of well, they fold very beautifully, and it's got a lot of branches. So it's not like the leaf is not just serrated, but it will have lots of different branches, and they make for a very interesting silhouette. And often these branches, or sorry, these leaves also have folds, and the fold, once it folds over, it has a different color. It's often lighter in the back than the front. So literally from Roman times, this motif has been used to decorate homes. Even in Corinthian columns, the leaves that you use are acanthus leaves. So that is a very distinct characteristic of Gudbrandsdal Rosemaling. The leaves are arranged in what looks like a C form. So that is a very basic tenet of all Rosemaling. Somewhere or the other, you will see a C and you will see an S. So in this case, you find that this part can be a C because there is like a terminus here from where another C emerges. And then you have smaller motifs that form the S curve. You have an S curve here. Now, all these are quite simple forms, but it's important to, they may not reveal themselves as C curves and S curves unless, of course, you're constructing. Then in that case, you may not be able to get this shape unless you create a S skeletal form and then you flesh it further.
Almost like the hibiscus, no? This one?
Sorry?
Almost like the hibiscus, no? This one?
Hibiscus. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, the hibiscus
Yeah.
also has a very pretty, so pretty petals also, especially towards the edges, and leaves also quite distinct. Now the Telemark, maybe it's the most popular because it's the most abstract that I've seen. There aren't very realistic flowers. They're almost like fantasy flowers. So just a few dots here and there, and they represent flowers. It has a very significant C scroll. So that you have a C from here, here. These are all C's. And often these are asymmetrical. Both these are asymmetrical as compared to the others, which have a distinct symmetry where we'll come to. So these are a very organic shape. You can build it like this, then you can build an S shape from here, or there's an S shape coming here and C shape from here. And it just grows according to the area that it has to fit. That's why often you will see that this is used in panels which might be even longer because you don't know how much you want to, how much symmetry you can afford. But you can always keep expanding with another C shape or S shape to grow the design more. Then you will have, after you have made some basic shape, you'll have some fine details in a darker or a lighter color, more distinct color. And they will enhance the design even more. They will be like the lace you would put on a garment. So one thing that's also a lot of videos said was that they have these little stalks that start from somewhere in the middle of the design and then they extend out of the flower. So you see a lot of the flower parts tapering beyond the flower itself. Like I've done something over here or here, which is again unusual or might be common in a few and not in all. The Hallingdal and the Rogaland are both symmetrical. Hallingdal is often symmetrical only vertically.
Right.
Rogaland is vertical as well as horizontal. So it's almost like you have this tile that can be repeated or even this way. So you just have a slice that can be made and then that can be repeated 8 ways. So a larger repeat and mirroring. Over here, it could just be left, right. In the Hallingdal design, there's often a very prominent central floral motif around which you have very colorful patterns like leaves, and then you have smaller flowers around the periphery. The Rogaland also has a flower in the center. The leaves are not as prominent or as colorful as the Hallingdal, and these flowers also separate out, but this is often like almost a kaleidoscopic design. So you can distinctly see this different from here. Hallingdal is also distinguished by often having a red background. And all the design is then done on the red background. No such background in the Rogaland. Now, beyond this, there are the Oos style, Valdress, Rosdom, Vest Agder, and Numedal. So you see many, you will see samples of these when you look for them. The Numedal, for some reason, you don't see too many samples, but what is very popular is this grid line detail, which I will show you in one. I don't think I have it here, but it's there in one of the designs. So the two styles that I studied are, this is the Telemark, and this one is that very amorphous style. But if you notice, this has got the grid line. And I have a feeling that this is probably the Numedal style, but I'm still waiting to confirm. Now, in all of the notes that I'll share with you, I have shared the source from where I have got this information. And this particular information I got from Reddit. If you're not on Reddit, it might take you a little while to navigate through their user interface. But this girl on Reddit has used the Rosemaling style to decorate her bullet journal. You'll see this. And I'll share this link with you also. You don't have to draw it. Write it down. So she has, with whatever little bit she could do, decorated her pages of a regular bullet journal. So I don't even think this was an artistic requirement or she had to make this journal for school, but this is just her own study and it is so inspiring. Now, when you make a study, this is how you go through it, and she's put it up all on Reddit for people to watch. There are a few links towards the end of her post that take you to the pages that she has drawn. They're not on the same post as the Reddit article that she's written. And even she's spoken about this last style, the Numedal style, being very difficult to find samples of, but we can look for them. So 1 second. Yeah. So now we'll just go over all the designs again and see what we recognize of the style. So this is the last one we saw. This is quite clearly the Telemark design because it's asymmetrical. It's got these C shapes and S shapes that intertwine. They often also will have a very distinct starting point or terminus, which would be either a circle or a flower shape like that. So this is a circular shape here. This is a flower shape. Then the others in this category could be, oh, where is it gone? Okay, let's go one by one. This one in none of the styles is visible. This one, again, it's got a central terminal or an origin point from where you see the C shape. So this is definitely a Telemark design. All just C shapes, and the flowers are not very distinct, not visible as any particular kind of flower. This one, now we have a vertical symmetry. So this is the Hallingdal. The flowers look very much like peonies. They're not fantasy flowers so much. But here you see this cross hatching, this little grid line detail. So this could be Numidal also, I'm not sure. But a lot of these things can also cross-pollinate. So you might see a little bit of one style in another style also. This is again Hallingdal because you have vertical symmetry. This would be Telemark. Now this is the distinct black, red on black design. This is the Rhodsaum, Raudsaum. It's there in my notes. Now these are names of valleys in Norway. This would be the Rogaland design. Intense symmetry. It's beautiful how you can make something like that freehand. This is obviously made freehand, but the artist was extremely skilled. Now here again, we have vertical symmetry, a big flower pattern. So this is quite possibly a Hallingdal. This would be Telemark again. This is the design that I've made, pen work of the Gudbrandsdal. And this is again a Telemark. So you will see, I think for every other design, you will see 10 Telemark designs when you do a search for Rosemaling. Okay, so I'm going to help show you how to construct this one of these designs in pencil, and we will start with Telemark because it's the easiest, and you can expand it to as much as you like. And we will then try to paint them as well, pretty much like how I painted this one. And what I normally do is when I'm studying something like that, I paint one motif at a time instead of taking on the whole artwork, because very often that whole artwork is a combination of a lot of other things that happen other than just painting. So one is symmetry, the other is just the composition, knowing where to draw how and how certain things grow from one origin line or form to another. And if we take that on immediately as one large project, then it's very difficult. So we will be tackling small things like one flower or just one leaf or one C shape. And then once we're confident with that, you can put those all together and make your design. I will be sharing I think one website also has these instructionals, like the first picture that I showed you right now, that has a picture on top, a color picture, and a black and white. So the black and white is meant to help you see the structure, and the color, you can just substitute the color, use any colors you want to make the design. All right. Okay, let's start.
The sea is so reminiscent of the fish. Sea, in the sea or
Of
the
the fish? Really? Oh, okay.
If you see fish, kind of, there.
Oh, very interesting. I'm trying to look at the fish, but yeah, maybe it is just that that shape which ends in a round in one end, and then yeah, we do make a lot of fish like that. Yeah, that's true.
came to me because you said there were fishermen also who did this. So I
Yeah.
just thought,
There you go. Quite an interesting thought. There's a lot of stuff that one can read through in many of these things. Okay, so let's just start with a pencil structure of the design. So I'm going to use the last design that we saw. Let me share it one more time so you know which one I'm talking about. And if you can keep this design in front of you, you don't need to try to make it yourself, but at least you'll know what part I'm drawing. So I'm going to start with the, let me show you where. So I'm going to start with the larger shapes like this shape, and it'll go from here. Sorry. So this is how I will make it. I will first make the short shape here. From here, I can build to the next, and then from here to the next, and so on. It's much easier to build from smaller shapes to larger shapes than the other way around. Likewise, now over here, I will build this shape first, and then move to the big one. And then I will decorate it with these shapes. Okay, so these tiny shapes come much later. You have to just completely ignore them. And then we will keep building the sides and the central flower and so on. All right. Okay. Now, on our paper, make the design just about so large. Don't make it too big. We don't want to make the design too big. This is just a pencil study. Then we are going to practice the shapes in paint. And then at some point, you could attempt something like that, which is in just A5 size, not too large. Now I'm tempted to go and get some poster colors to practice more of these. Okay, so let's start with the center design point. My design is going to be about so big, not too big. So if this is the part where I have the flower, my C shape is going to go only this large. Okay, so notice how tiny I've made it, just about so big, no bigger than my finger. Normally, I recommend that whatever design you do in the beginning should not be bigger than your palm, because the lines become too big and unwieldy. Areas are so huge that painting them become a problem, but smaller ones are easier to tackle. So from the center, I'm going to make a C shape like this, and I'm going to complete it because obviously I cannot make just a single line here. Then with this same thing, I'm going to go a little further. Now remember that our design is going to be different from the artist or our reference image, no matter how careful we are. And for that matter, if the same artist were to do this design again, their result will also be different. So a few shapes different, maybe your ovals or your C shapes become too round or too flat. Don't worry about that for the first drawing. So don't spend any time in trying to erase and create what you might think is a more perfect design. There's no such thing. Okay, now I'm slowly increasing this wave. And what I'm trying to do is keep the back end of this shape a nice graceful oval part. So I'm not, there aren't any gaps over here. And in the front, these lines are forming a C shape built on a C shape and so on. And then here is a very large ball terminus. which goes back and joins over here. Now notice how now this is for Shalini's benefit, that I am making the line back and forth like that, because there's no guarantee that the first line that we make is going to be the perfect line. So allow for a few lines to be around over here. They won't spoil the drawing or the design, so you don't need to worry about that. Now I'm going to extend this line further down and make a ball terminus here as well. Now, only because in the reference image, I can see that this distance, this angle would be too steep, and my central flower needs to come right underneath this part over here. Now, because these designs are made in things like acrylic paint, you can notice that the stuff that is made in like flowers that comes on top was made afterwards. So the brighter colored flowers are overlapping the blues and the greens, so they were made afterwards. So when we are constructing also, we should construct in that same order, just so that we get our shapes right. Now, the next side, we come from the left, we have a smaller curve going up. And then we have just again the same thing, its back goes through. And then there's an overlap. The one on the scroll that comes from the top overlaps, and the scroll that comes from the bottom overlaps on the right. So this is the scroll from the bottom that is overlapping on the right, and the scroll from the top overlaps on the left of this junction. And then we have these extra lines over here. So our basic construction is done. Mine has become too round. It should have been a little oval, but I'm going to let it be. Sometimes you can just make this observation, but continue with whatever design you've made. Then we will make additional shapes from here. Now we just need to make a C shape design. Although they have called it a C shape, it's just a very smooth, flattish curve. But when you make it with a brush, it will look like you're making a C shape, not a straight line. But do not try to make it a very rounded C shape. Just because in our heads the C is like this, then everything starts just becoming very big and bulbous. Then if you notice the lines on the right and left, here is where we have a very nice subtle S shape. And even from this side. And these are, you'll notice the strength of the color is higher towards the outer edges. So you know that the stroke has been taken from out to in, even over here, out to in. And my design looks incomplete on the right, so I'm just going to complete it for myself. Now the flowers, because at this point now the base is complete and we can make the flowers. The flowers are made in strokes like that. You have a C, C, and C. All these are just C shapes. And then on top, in these spaces, you have a C and an S. C and an S. And then from the other side, inverted C and inverted S, inverted C, inverted S. That is how that little detail on top has been achieved. Now the same thing is repeated at the bottom. C, C, and even a C here. These are the strokes we are making now. And again, C and S, C and S, and S and C. And instead of a third C and S combination here, they have thrown out a large C shape. And then there are more C's over here, which are very pretty to look at.
The C and the S is so interesting.
Isn't it? It's so modest. I love that the building blocks are so modest and you can do so much with it. So now if you get the idea, I'm going to recommend start making these different motifs by yourselves. Like we have, I'll show you this one that emerges from the center over here and goes up. So the line, because of the strength of the color, you'll notice comes like this. This is the S shape. Then you have these little strokes. This is a C stroke. Now, the fine lines that have been made are in all probability made sometimes at the end, but in this particular case, probably in the beginning. So when you're making this flower, it's easier to make a flower at the end of a line when you've drawn that line, not afterwards. So you draw this line first, and then you situate your flower over here. You have the base, you have the calyx, and then you just draw 1, 2, 3, the same thing. 4, 5 from the side, S and C, S and C. Now, once this is done, we can practice the detailing. So you can have a line that comes all the way to the flower and then goes beyond. This is another pretty interesting characteristic of the Telemark design, that you have several such lines that come beyond the flower and create a motif. Oh, this is the other side. What fascinated me about the Rosemaling is also because I study a little bit of ornamental calligraphy. Many of the same shapes are used in calligraphy as well. So these shapes like the S shape and C shape are expanded further. So if we were to suppose do an ornamental lettering of the word Rosemaling, often it can be seen like that. You have so this becomes a C and this becomes an S. Then you will have C. And then there are decorations like that. So you'll have ovals. And it's very possible that they have all been European traditions that have moved from one to the other artwork, art form, craft There's no telling.
Yeah.
And those, yeah, we also use a lot of these kind of cross hatches in the design.
Really.
Okay, so are you getting a hang of construction of the Rosemaling? Now, wherever you need to rotate the book to make the design, no? You don't need to keep it all in one direction.
That way, I would have
Now, the important part to remember in this is when the design is made, a lot of it depends on how well you can manipulate the brush stroke. So I'm going to show you a little bit of brush manipulation. This is something that is now commonly seen in calligraphy, especially brush calligraphy. And not many people are using it as well as they can, but samples of that you can see over here. So if you now understand how this construction is done, we can complete this later. And I will show you some brush manipulation strokes. So we'll need paint for this. Now, Shalini, you could, I'm thinking, take out some colors, these similar colors, blue, green, yellow, red, white, and maybe a black also later if we need to. So just take a little dollop of them on a plate. Don't mix them and don't add water. Keep water handy because you will need water. And what you'll be doing is dabbing your brush or damp brush in your poster color and then painting. I suspect that you might be able to do it very well even with the paint in the bottle itself. But in the beginning, I don't want you to try that in case one color corrupts the other one. Okay?
I'll just get a plate and come.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll be using medium to thin round brushes. I'm using a number 7, number 6, and this is a round, I don't even know, this is 6 also. So let's start with this 6. This is from the S68 series. So this is slightly slimmer. But I want you to first observe and paint later. Normally, when we paint with a brush, we tend to paint with just the tip. And often, like we would paint with pencil, we keep going back and forth, back and forth. This is how, as beginners, we transition from pencil to crayons to color pencils to brush painting. But with brush, you can do stuff that you cannot do with either crayon or definitely not with pencil. And that is to splay the brush. And this allows for a larger stroke or a larger area to be colored. So when you are painting large surfaces, you should be able to spread your brush and paint. And once you do that, there's a little bit of abrasion which causes the paint to sit on the paper and be absorbed very quickly. So often you will have a lighter color appear when you splay the brush, as opposed to when you use the tip, but you get a larger coverage. Now that you can do this and you have direction and pressure, you can do a lot of stuff by just deciding where you're going to splay the brush and in what direction you're going to move the line. So if you're going to make the line straight and then splay it suddenly, you will get a particular shape. If you're going to move the line in a circle and you splay it, you get a different line. If you're going to move it in an S shape, you get a different line. So these strokes are called brush manipulation. And there are any number of brush manipulated strokes you can make. So I want to demonstrate a few to you. And I want you to then play with your brush. Don't try to make a stroke because that is how you're supposed to make it, but accidentally just land on a stroke and then put that as in your repertoire and say, oh, this is interesting. This is how I did it. So when you don't use any force and you draw a line, this is how a line can be drawn. A thin line can be drawn when you trail the line behind the brush. The first of the brush manipulated strokes would be when you put a little bit of pressure and just make even a horizontal line. This line is made perpendicular to how you hold the brush, so you can add some pressure. If I were to do the same thing with my brush over here, I would make a thick line about the width of the brush itself. Okay. Now, the fun starts when I change and make the line dynamic. So I'm making it thin here, but then I slowly add pressure, make it thick, and then slowly reduce pressure, and then make it thin again. So I start getting a leaf shape. If I control the area, I can get something like that. And this can easily become a lovely border. So these are the kinds of strokes, the brush manipulated strokes, that allow us to make patterns like these, or even those truck patterns, very quickly. Now the next thing I can do is try and make a stroke that is curved. So like a C shape coming from top, I'm pressing. And then as I'm coming down, I'm lifting it. So almost the same kind of stroke in just one shot, as opposed to drawing an outline and then painting on it, not needed.
No.
Then I can just add another C shape. And all of them have one common stem. And we achieved the basic shape, right? So what we are doing is as I'm placing my brush on the paper, I'm pressing it. It's slightly twisted and I'm just pulling it down towards the left. And as I'm pulling it, I'm reducing the pressure so that I get a very nice fine line. Okay, now do you want to try these strokes? So first just try this bunch of strokes, and you can try more also if you want to, and then eventually see how you can make the C shape. Okay, are you getting it?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
In poster colors, you don't need to add water. Aditi.
You do need to add a little bit of water, but because the stroke that's expected is a little fat and gloopy, it might help to not add anything. But I don't know how liquid your your poster colors are. But use your discretion. If you feel they would move smoother with water, then add just a tad, or keep your brush more hydrated. Okay, the next one we can try is the S stroke. So in the same direction as this, we can have, start from the top.
Let's just lost the internet.
Then finish it from the other side. So now my brush does not allow me to make this whole S stroke like that. So I have made it from the top towards the left and then top into the right.
I see.
Now it could be a matter of skill to be able to do this in one stroke. But at the end of the day, if you can make a pattern that resembles the S, and you can do it one way or the other and create the different colors in it, I suppose it should work. In some crafts or in some art forms, there is the hierarchy of who's a better artist depends on things like these. Like if their hand is so free that a particular artist can make any number of strokes from all directions in any size, with any brush on any surface, then they're usually considered like a master artist. But till then, we are allowed to try all sorts of stuff so that the end result is what matches our expectations. Now there's one more S or C and S combination, which is the tips of these flowers. Oh, 1 minute. Shali, if you're showing me, you might have to unblur your background.
Oh, yes.
Can't see anything.
There's so much in these days. Oh.
There is, that's true. I think you need to go down to video, no?
Video. Just show me this little ball.
Archana knows all these things.
Again.
Got it. Okay.
So just wanted to show you that something's been done, but how?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah. Okay, nice.
Right.
So the stroke that you're making right now is just a one. The pressure is not changing too much. Okay, so that is why what you're getting is like a one thickness stroke throughout. So what I'm going to request you to do is try to just press the brush a little more so that the bristles are splayed, and then let it come down. So what will happen is you might not get a smooth transition if you're unfamiliar with using the brush, but at least you'll see that there are two ranges. There's one range of the brush, one end of the range, which is a very thin line, and the other of the range is where you have a slightly fattish line. Even if you get that, that would be one step further, and then you would be able to manipulate that. All right. So the other stroke that we see at the ends over here are slightly more I guess, distinct. So you make a stroke that's coming straight and very sharp and turns around. So this is also technically an S shape. And from the other side, it's a flat stroke like this. So you have making another one. S, C. And you might also see that there is a little bit of a vacuum in some places. No, not on this anyway. Oh yeah, it is a vacuum. So it doesn't cover that whole area. Let me just show this to you one more time. So the internal shape is like this. And then the detail that they've made has got the S and C very differently. And I'll show you as my blue color dries up. So one study that we can do is just use one color tone, for example, just blues. You have cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, and cobalt blue. And we can try to build a design like that in just blues, just for study. So we can create something similar. You have a basic structure. This is my oval shape. This is my C. This time round, I'm just creating the skeleton of the design. So I just need some direction for my lines to follow. Okay, it's just skeletal forms. And this is my flower here, here. Another flower here, another one here. Like we would draw any kind of guidelines. This is how I'm going to draw this. The same picture, huh? But I'm going to practice creating this only in one set of colors. Again, you don't need to do that. We can also use greens. But this is the fun thing that one can do with this. So I'm trying C's. Now we can also try something like this. Try coming in the opposite direction. In watercolor, our overlaps may not be very distinctly visible. The colors will often merge into each other. That gives us a sense of a different kind of design. Shalini, are you getting that manipulated stroke?
Yeah, trying.
So if you're not getting it, you can always make a stroke like that. This is how your stroke is coming. It's all pretty much the same thickness. Go around it and then make one part thicker and then come back on the same line. Even that is fine. Okay, now right next to this, I've added green now, changed my mind. I want to add a bit of green. And in some cases, I'm allowing for my color to become very light, and I'm not necessarily making it flat. So this will give another dimension to the painting. Now, often when painting things like these, also you must keep in mind who the original artists were and under what circumstances they made these paintings. If these paintings were made in, like often when we go to tourist areas, you will find a lot of artifacts made for tourists to carry in the traditional art form. And if you're lucky enough to go to the workshop where they're made, they would have 3 or 4 very skilled artists who are sitting and churning these out by the hundreds per day for the tourists. So they don't have time to dwell over what might be very naively misconstrued as an error. So when we look at our pictures, we are so critical and we feel that we need to restart a design, or oh, this line is so bad, we need to go over it again, or I don't like my design. They don't have the liberty, even if they're experts. They at some point decided that this is enough, I'm just going to do so much, and in that they managed to make the design look beautiful. So there is a certain speed with which one can execute the strokes. Now, when I say speed, I don't mean that the stroke needs to be made fast or the design needs to be completed in record time. What I do mean, however, is with the briefest of strokes, you should be able to recreate the design. So there's a difference in speed and efficiency. So you may take 20 strokes to make this design. You may make this design in 20 seconds with those 20 strokes also. But what we need to do is not go over and over a stroke again once it's made. Just build on the stroke that you have made and take your time. But don't go over and over saying, okay, now let me make more adjustment here, more adjustment here. Whatever you have made is fine. Observe it and then add to that the next stroke as you see the logic of the design. And if it's your first design, like mine was my first Rosemaling here, there are a lot of errors, but they will not be visible if you complete the design. So just focus on the strokes and getting those strokes, right? Oh, I have now shifted to orange also. So now yellow and orange. And I'm just mixing the colors organically. I have not made puddles of these colors. I keep dipping into this and making the color. So whatever color comes, I get.
And you keep your brush a little like moisturized.
Sorry?
Keep your brush a little wet.
Yes, yes, brush a little wet. This is a C shape here. I'm making it upside down. And I'm putting pressure towards the bottom. So when I come over here, I think we can also use scarlet.
It's really a lot of clay with the brush.
Sorry, Shalini, I can't hear you.
It's a lot of clay with the brush.
Yes, yes. But it's only that. There's hardly anything. I mean, there aren't too many complicated things. So while still you're getting used to the brush now, just what you can do is literally just painting time pass. Just make these strokes in whatever form they come. And honestly, even if you just make them in the straight, the regular uniform thick lines that you are making, it'll still look good.
Yeah.
Because of the C and the S patterns. So I want to show you this, Shalini.
Yeah.
And you here, for example, First and foremost, identify the spot where you have to make the stroke. And you can draw it in pencil. So I need to draw a stroke here like that. And a big S shape here. So suppose this is how you make your line, because this you can make, right? Just see which part is thicker. So now this part we know, wherever the terminus is or the origin is, it's thinner. So you can just build the same stroke on one side. That's all you need to do. So even if you don't press in the beginning, it's fine. Now from the same spot, we will take another line out and we will bring it here. And I'm not applying any pressure. I'm just drawing literally with this brush to get me that shape. Okay?
Perfect. We'll need a little practice.
Yeah.
Lot of practice.
Yeah, in the meantime, you can still make the design, but that is the more important part. And it might take a little longer in the beginning, but then that is normal. Every beginner takes longer, and obviously the expert, that's why they're experts, will make all the designs much faster.
It's very but therapeutic, what you guys making the colors and the movement.
Yes. These should be very easy to make eventually on cards. So say where I use much of my art is on a very regular basis is gifting. I mean, despite all the commissions and all that I have, where I feel it comes in most handy is when I have to create a quick card for somebody.
Lovely.
And this is such a beautiful pattern to recreate on a small card. Even if we do something like that, even this much is enough. Maybe another flower over here. So just see shapes in one color on one side, and then take orange in the middle, and then take scarlet on the other side. And here they have this white calyx, which I'm going to turn into crimson. And then using a fine brush. And this part of the design you can also make using a pen if you're more comfortable with that. I'm going to use a deep green color to create a base of the flower. And now comes the tough part. But again, this you can make in pencil first and then draw it. Drawing a nice curved line that goes into the stem. So the latter part can take a little bit of practice, the fine line work. Now from here, there's another line coming that goes through, and you can make this in pencil first so that it becomes easy to trace. And if your hand is shaking, don't do this in brush. You can do this in a sketch pen, you can do this in color pencil, any medium that you are more comfortable with. Oh, I forgot to make those little flowers. So I'm going back to this blue. I'm going to make my C and S shapes. I wanted to show you that over here. S and C. S, C.
Love this SLC.
So now here,
Hmm.
how they've made the SNC is quite interesting. They've made it like this.
Right.
So the stroke is, you go down and then you go up a little bit and you make this. So you get a little bit of a
Curve, no?
a little extra curve, yeah, thickness to that curve. And then of course you make the C over here. And then you have these lines for the design. So one more time,
Yeah.
you come down as an S, and then you go up a little bit and you press down. And then you make this C. So here we have S, C, S, C. And the same dark color, in this case dark because our paper is light. I will go over some of the flower with outlines.
For everything that hasn't come well, I'm going to blame the brush and the paint and everything.
Yes, you can. So I remember when they say Nach na jane angan teda, I find that a little cruel, that statement, because there is going to be a time when you don't know something. And at that time, your angan is teda. So I would like to give it back to everyone who says that, saying that, how long did you take to become an expert? Give me that much time. But I would also like beginners to learn to say that I'm a beginner at this. The fact that I'm doing it at all is a triumph.
Love doing this. I was always scared of drawing and painting because I thought I wasn't good at it. But I realize now there's nothing about being good and bad. It's just you just enjoy what you, yeah. This was so
Yes.
beautiful. Yes, and the sea was absolutely lovely.
And there's so many things that you can do. So you can't say there's just one thing that makes you a good artist, or one thing that is good painting, or one technique that says that you're an expert. But I keep blaming our educational culture that often pegs something as a replicable formula. And if you don't get that formula, that means you're absolutely useless. And they put that right in the beginning. So if you can't write your alphabet exactly the way that the teacher writes, you're useless. What if you can write it differently? What if you can write it backwards or upside down? That's never seen as a skill as much as a fault and a defect. I think there's something really wrong with the system. So please feel free to blame your brush, your angan.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is lovely. You'll send me a list of the things to get, then it'll
I'll
be
do
fun.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll do that. So take your time finishing this. And now, if you don't have any questions or doubts, we are just going to proceed like that. And like I said, the fine line work does take a little bit of practice to do with brush, but try it with a pencil first. Because then with that, you can also erase. Once you're comfortable with that, then you can make it in pen, and then finally you can make it in paint. And at any point, if you feel that you doubt yourself, you don't know whether you're going to be able to make that stroke well or not, keep a rough paper handy and try it out over there 10 times if you need to, till you feel confident. Because a large part of being able to make those strokes accurately is just having the muscle strength. We don't use writing tools as much anyway. So, as it is, our fingers must get used to that idea. So holding the brush and then manipulating is another exercise that our muscles need to become comfortable with. And it'll happen. So you just keep doing that through the whole day, and then finally you'll be able to get that pressure well enough. Okay. All right. Okay. So next week we will start the design part that the rest of the classes have started. We will do surface pattern design. And in the meantime, I'll send you the materials, Shalini, so you can just gather those.
Aditi, I may be in Chennai next week.
Okay.
So if what happens when we miss a class, do we get do I just go to the YouTube and see the recording?
You can see the recording, but I'm also going to send you a schedule of the other classes, and you could attend one of the other classes.
Perfect.
Okay. So the only thing is, with the other classes, we've gone one step further. And in the next class, one extra item that we will need, which won't be in your list, is some tracing paper. So if you can keep tracing paper handy, if you find any of the other batches more suitable, just inform me so that I can send you that link in time. And we will be doing a tracing of pattern to expand the pattern next time. Okay.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Okay. So see you
Bye.
next week then. Bye.
I see you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye, Archana.
Bye-bye.
Bye.